So I've given you my list of the top 10 acting Emmy wins of the 2010s. Now it's time to talk about the snubs. Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender. And yeah, let's talk about those great performances that went home with 0 Emmys throughout the 2010s. Like who got nominated but never won, and it's still kind of annoying to this day. Let's start with number 10, Chris Colfer, Glee.
And what I am is I'm gay.
So to be honest, I didn't much care for Glee starting around season 4, season 5. I did think it went off the rails a little bit. But those first 3 seasons of Glee are pretty fantastic. And one of my favorite characters in that show was Kurt Hummel. I thought Chris Colfer was so bonkers fantastic in that show, especially I would say season 2. Like he was dynamite in that second season, and I do think he deserved to win an Emmy for that show. At some points, he got a Golden Globe Award, which was great, but he also should have won an Emmy too. Number 9, Christine Baranski, The Good Wife.
But instead, I'm going to fire you as a client.
What?
You're no longer a client here.
I'm not?
You're not.
It does kind of baffle me, to be honest, that Christine Baranski has only won a single Emmy for Sybil back in the 1990s. You're telling me that throughout all 7 seasons of The Good Wife, Christine Baranski did not win an Emmy for that show. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, Juliana Margulies won 2 Emmys in lead actress for that show. Baranski was also fantastic every step of the way, and it's kind of upsetting. I feel like Christine Baranski for that series should have won like 2 or 3 trophies. That she never won any is ridiculous. Number 8, Titus Burgess, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
The rent, the electric bill, the floor that got ruined when I fell asleep in her bathtub. How was I supposed to turn the faucet off? I was asleep.
So Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, that was such a delightful show. It was one of my favorite Netflix series at the beginning of their run. It started in 2015, and I never missed an episode. Everybody is so funny on that show. Ellie Kemper, Jane Krakowski, Carol Kane, the list goes on and on. So many great guest star appearances. But Titus Burgess was so flippin' funny, so creative and original at all times. It does honestly shock me he never won an Emmy for that performance. I mean, he was a force of nature in that series. Every line reading, every expression, gesture. Titus Burgess should have won an Emmy for Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Number 7, Robin Wright, House of Cards.
That's what we are when we strip everything away. That I can understand.
It was deranged, begging me to take you like that.
And you couldn't even give that to me.
So Robin Wright just can't catch a break, apparently. As I talked about in my recent video, female actors who have never been nominated for an Oscar, Robin Wright has never received an Academy Award nomination. Now, she has received plenty of Emmy nominations. She was basically nominated for House of Cards every season of that show throughout the 2010s. And I just kind of assumed, honestly, she had won at some points, but she never did. 8 Emmy nominations. She never won for that performance. She was so great in House of Cards. Say what you will about certain things to do with that show. Robin Wright was at the top of her game at all times, and it seems silly in a way that she never got a win for that series. Come on. Number 6, Anna Klumsky, Veep.
Oh, you're not even bullshit. Bullshitting takes talent. You have none. You are just a blah, 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 blah bitch.
Now, I don't know about you, but I found it very annoying 1 year after the next to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus win Best Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for Veep. Over and over and over again, and Anna Klumsky, who was so fantastic in that show. So funny, so smart, so witty, and she never won for playing that character. I mean, I guess you could say supporting actress was always a lot more stacked, there was a lot more competition there, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus in the lead role in that show was always undeniable. I get that. I picked Julia Louis-Dreyfus for Veep as the #2 Best Acting Emmy win of the 2010s. She's phenomenal. But I also loved Anna Klumsky. I have adored her as an actress going all the way back to My Girl in the early 90s, and she got the role of a lifetime in Veep. She was nominated over and over again. She never won. I thought she might take it for that final season, but it didn't happen, and it bums me the hell out. #5, Vera Farmiga, Bates Motel.
You're being a dick about something that isn't my fault.
I'm just watching a movie.
Movie's over.
Here is a great show that didn't get very much Emmy love. I think Farmiga only got nominated for season 1 and then never again, and that was just wrong, in my opinion. I loved every season of Bates Motel. I think there were 5 of them, and Freddie Highmore and Vera Farmiga gave performances for the ages. I know it was kind of a genre show, and that was going to hurt its chances to be nominated at the Emmys, especially to win. But I feel like Vera Farmiga was so monumentally fantastic in that show, she should have at least been nominated for like season 2, season 3, and I do think she should have won for that performance. She was big and loud and complex and fascinating to watch over those 5 seasons. I have always adored Vera Farmiga, and I wish she had won an Emmy for that show. It would have been well deserved. #4, Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul.
All right, let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
So here we have a major acting Emmy snub that extends all the way into the 2020s. Like, what the hell did Emmy voters have against Better Call Saul? They nominated it every season. They went nuts in terms of nominating it, but that show never won a single Emmy, and especially Bob Odenkirk, who was so fantastic in the lead role, should have won at some point. I do think it was a matter of poor timing. Like, Succession was doing very well in the later seasons of Better Call Saul, so the timing of like Odenkirk up against these titan performances, he was always #2 or #3. There was never a season where he could really stand out from the pack. I just don't think Emmy voters loved the show quite enough to give it some wins there at the end. They wanted to reward instead the final season of Succession, and that made sense. I kind of wish Better Call Saul had had one more season. Then I think Odenkirk maybe could have finally won, but up against Succession, up against some of these other big shows the last few years, it just could never transcend. And it's too bad, because Bob Odenkirk was so fantastic. First on Breaking Bad, he was never Emmy nominated for that performance in Breaking Bad, which is crazy. But then he's nominated all the time for Better Call Saul, and he never wins. And I would say it is a huge travesty in the history of the Emmys. #3, Kerry Russell, The Americans.
When they tortured us, I blamed you for what happened. To me, to us, it wasn't your fault. I'm sorry.
Now, this was the one time in recent memory where I got visibly upset watching the Emmys. I was so into The Americans. I loved it from episode 1 all the way to that incredible series finale 6 seasons later. Emmy voters for a while ignored the show. I don't think it got any Emmy nominations. If it did, it got just a few for the first 3 seasons. And then around season 4, they finally figured out, oh, this is one of the best shows on TV. and they started nominating it for more stuff toward the end, especially for season 6, where Matthew Rhys won Best Lead Actor in a Drama Series. That was fantastic, but they didn't give Best Actress to Kerry Russell, and I was so flippin' pissed because I knew that was the final time she could win an Emmy for that show, and I was like, really? Come on. Let's give it to Matthew Rhys and Kerry Russell, and then I can go to bed happy, but it didn't happen. Like, Kerry Russell should have an Emmy by now. If not for the Americans, like something else. Like, give this woman more trophies. She is such an underrated actress. I think she is fantastic, and her performance in The Americans was so complex, so fascinating. She got to show so many layers of that character, and the Emmy voters were like, no, we're gonna go with someone else. Give me an effing break. Number 2, Steve Carell, The Office.
When you said that you might want to have kids and I wasn't so sure, who had the vasectomy reversed? And then when you said you definitely didn't want to have kids, who had it reversed back? Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Now this one is truly insane. How did Steve Carell never win an Emmy for The Office? He got 6 acting Emmy nominations for that show. He was also nominated a few times in Best Comedy Series, and he never won. And it was one of those things, kind of like how Jon Hamm finally won for Mad Men at the very end. I thought for the final season that Steve Carell was in The Office, they were going to give him the trophy. They couldn't deny him that final time, and they did. Like, I remember his expression in the audience. He looked a little disappointed. He was probably like, really? Like, really? Why do you guys hate me so much? Like, why can't you give me one frickin' trophy for this show? I mean, he was the face of that show. For how many seasons? He did such great work for years, and it was one of the most acclaimed, beloved comedy series on television. For like close to a decade, we could have given Steve Carell one Emmy win for that performance. I mean, come the F on. And finally, that takes me to my number 1 choice. This is the one actor in this entire list that didn't even get an Emmy nomination for her performance, and I think it was some of the finest work in television of the 2010s. I still cannot believe this show only got 1 Emmy nomination for its entire run. It was for Guest Actress. It's just ridiculous. Batshit crazy, I would say. And this specific performance, this actress not only should have been nominated for this show multiple times, she should have won the Emmy. My number 1 choice for the most egregious acting Emmy snub of the 2010s is Carrie Coon, The Leftovers.
You would know there is no moving on. There is no happiness. What's next? What's fucking next? Nothing is next. Nothing.
This was, for me, a monumental performance in either film or TV. Carrie Coon in The Leftovers was so colossally great. It just confounds me. It bewilders me how she didn't get an Emmy nomination. Clearly because the show only got 1 Emmy nom the entire run. They either weren't watching it, they weren't taking it seriously, they didn't like it for whatever reason, which is absurd because I found The Leftovers so compelling all the way through. Dazzling writing and direction and acting from that huge ensemble. So many gifted actors in that show. Justin Theroux, the lead male in that series, also should have gotten an Emmy nomination. But Carrie frickin' Coon was undeniable. There is an episode in season 1 of The Leftovers where we focus entirely on her character of Nora, and it is a tour de force for an hour. I walked away from that episode and I said, well, she's gonna win an Emmy for that. She has to. And then she wasn't nominated. I remember on the morning of Emmy nominations that year, I was like, Carrie Coon wasn't nominated for The Leftovers? Are you frickin' kidding me? Like, did you guys even watch the show? I mean, there was also that moment toward the end of season 1 where her character walks into the kitchen and sees her family, her husband, her kids, who are now gone, and they have been replaced by these like mannequins, by these figures that sort of look like them, but it's not really them. And she has this emotional breakdown in that scene I have never forgotten. I think about that scene all the time. Like, just going about my life. Like I think about Carrie Coon in The Leftovers all the frickin' time. And when I look at the Emmy nominations for those years and don't see The Leftovers anywhere, really, it's like, what were you guys thinking? You made a huge mistake here. At minimum, I would say Carrie Coon should have gotten at least one Emmy nomination for The Leftovers. I think she should have won. I think she should have been nominated for all 3 seasons, definitely winning for that first season. Now, I'm happy Emmy voters are finally acknowledging her work. She's nominated for the Gilded Age, and that's fantastic. Any nominations from an awards body for the great Carrie Coon, I am a happy man. But Emmy voters should have been on their game many years ago when The Leftovers was on television. They should have given this series multiple nominations, including Best Drama Series, and especially, I would say, Best Lead Actress in a Drama Series. Carrie Coon for The Leftovers is easily, I would say, the #1 most egregious acting Emmy snub of the 2010s. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below, what do you think of my list of these acting Emmy snubs from that decade? Is there anyone I forgot about? We'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.